Hey everybody, I'm Invisible Katana, and this video, which is of course, as you saw in the title, a review for the first Back to the Future film. I'm doing a series of videos celebrating the franchise for this year because of course it is 2015. Obviously if you know Back to the Future, then you know I love it because I have the hat from 2. This is actually the first review for the films, and I don't know if I'm going to end up doing the second movie in October or if I'll do it before. I'm not sure. I'm going to end up pacing out the reviews. But I wanted to wait to start doing the reviews for the movies and do a bunch of other random crap. So you can definitely check that out. I believe I made a playlist for it a while ago. I only have like a couple videos because I tend to do like one a month. But you can check those out. This is, like I said, just another in a long line of videos. There will end up being more than 12 this year. I just don't know when I'm going to start doing some of the other videos as well. Like I'm hoping to do a Let's Play of the Back to the Future game, the Telltale Games one, and I'm kind of waiting for that to go down in price because it's on Steam, so at some point, I don't want to buy it now and then, of course, like a week later, it's like, oh, look at that, it's like $2 or something crazy, so I'm waiting for that to go down in price because I know it will, but for now, I'm going to review the first film. I love the franchise, like I said, and the first time I saw Back to the Future Part 1 was a long time ago. I actually saw it on VHS the first time I ever saw it, and it was it was actually recorded off of TV. That's how I first saw it. I saw like probably the crappiest way you could see a film is, with a crappy tape that recorded it off of TV, and the tape itself was already watched enough times to where certain parts just, had like the static and it just looked really crappy. But I remember, like, the only thing I really remember from the first time I ever watched it was the scene with Marty when he, like, first does the guitar. So, like, the very beginning of the movie is really all I remember from watching it for the first time, like, on VHS. But I've loved the movies ever since. Like, I saw it again when I was much older. Like, maybe, I think the first time I saw it, I may have been, like, 8 or something like that. Maybe even younger than that, actually. So, probably 7 or 8, something like that. And then after that, I think I saw it when I was like 12 or 13. And so I really got into the movies. It could have been maybe only when I was 10 or something, but I had like enough, I was smart enough to realize how cool the movie was. And I just love the movie like crazy. It's a hilarious movie, of course. It wouldn't, the franchise has lasted, for decades now because they're so funny. The writing is really good. Probably one of the greatest time travel things out there. Definitely one of the greatest. That's why it's lasted so long. And everything about it, I think, has just always been so well done. And the acting is really good. The characters just interact really well, and I guess that comes from the actors and just them having natural chemistry with, of course, Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. But everyone, in that movie just seems to work together. Like when it's supposed to be awkward, like after Marty goes back in time and, you have his parents and it's like, it's just weird between them. That's just how it's supposed to be. Like Leah Thompson and Crispin Glover, they're together, but it's like a young George McFly when he was, it's George McFly, so he's always really nervous until the end of the movie. But, it's just like, it just worked. Like, it seemed very genuine and realistic. I love the dialogue in that film and the amount of foreshadowing that they have through both the dialogue and some of the visual stuff, like the opening scene alone. And it took me forever to realize is like every time that the movie starts, I end up finding something else really random. Like the first scene the first thing that Marty says after he opens the door is like, "Hello, anybody home?" And of course that's Biff line throughout the entire film. And I didn't notice that forever. And then Doc has like this model, and there's a guy hanging off a clock tower, and that was foreshadowing Doc hanging off the clock tower at the end of the film. And it's just random stuff, and there's like, you just look around and it's, really nothing. And then just every once in a while it's like, oh, this thing or something he said, I didn't notice that, it's that line, or this thing, which is flat out foreshadowing. It's just like, here's basically the scene at the end of the movie. That wasn't even like a little random thing. It's just like, this is the end of the movie right here. So a ton of cool stuff is thrown in the movie where it's like, here's, when Marty first goes down the street to his high school, it's like, here's all these different places, the places like the dance studio or whatever, that ends up being the cafe, and all sorts of cool things like that I really love. So it's definitely really fun, like the dialogue that they have and how they foreshadow things, how they do it visually. Like I said, just the writing of the characters, how they're really silly, and Marty's like the centered character. Really is like Marty, his mother and his girlfriend are like the most centered characters, and then you have like Doc and his father and Biff, and it's like half and half. It's like half of them are sort of centered, the other half's like really crazy, but the crazy half is just like so silly and over the top. Like Doc, obviously he invents a time machine, so you have to have a guy who's just so silly and hyperactive and funny, and then you have Biff, who's like the biggest douche in the universe, and then you have George, who's just so nervous and kind of like the weak character in like the first film. And there are of course all the issues with Crispin Glover and not actually being in the second and third film, and for anyone who didn't actually know that and all the legal stuff that happened there. But just how they did that, I thought was really well done. And it was just a great film, like a great start to a great franchise, which initially it wasn't meant to be. It was supposed to end, even though it ended on a clear cliffhanger, it was meant to be like just one film, and it was one of the very rare examples where the movie made so much money they had to make a sequel because that's what the studio wanted. And fortunately, we got a great, great sequel. But the first movie by itself is just hilarious. There are tons of references, like Marty knowing all these things about 1985 and saying he's like Darth Vader. The scene where he wakes George up in his room, and it's like he mixes Star Wars and Star Trek and stuff. He has like Van Halen tapes and all this other cool stuff. So I definitely love that, the way they do some of the things, like really subtle stuff with how they did actually change the future. Like obviously the biggest thing was everything that happened with Marty, but like the mall in the film was the Twin Pines Mall, and then after Marty runs one of the trees down, when he goes back to the future, I guess, or the present for him, it's the Lone Pine Mall. So just little stuff like that I think is really cool. I love those types of things in movies where it's like, here's this subtle reference, it's something that changed in the past, and this was the outcome. So it's just little cool things like that, which I definitely love. Obviously I really enjoy the film. There's not really much bad to say. Like the only thing really of the whole franchise that you could talk about that would be bad is honestly just like some time loop plot holes, but it's time travel, so like there's nothing that's going to be perfect. And then maybe the legal stuff that happened with Crispin Glover, because that did kind of suck. I thought they kind of messed him up on that one, and they used his likeness, and then that kind of started the whole fact that you can't use a person's likeness without their permission, or otherwise you pay them royalties. So aside from those couple things, which technically happened in the sequel, the Crispin Glover thing, the movie itself is just really well done. There's some random little things. There's definitely a cool video. I don't know if anyone watches Cinema Sins. They did one for Back to the Future, which was actually really cool. And definitely check that out because it's a great movie. As they say, no film is without sin. So there are definitely certain things that happen here and there. But when it comes to movies, there's nothing that actually makes 100% sense. Like every movie is just like, well, you could have just done this. But I love the film. It was definitely a great start to a great franchise, which is been expanded upon thanks to Telltale Games. They've had like the games on Nintendo, which kind of suck, but that was just movie games back then. Movie games now kind of suck really when you think about it. But it's definitely a great, great film. I'm really looking forward to playing the Telltale Games franchise because it is basically like a fourth film and it takes place afterwards. And they even had the Back to the Future ride at Universal because it was so incredibly popular, traveling through time and stuff like that. The 25th anniversary Blu-ray edition, all that stuff that spawned from this first film, and it was definitely a great film, great characters, great writing, and it's definitely one of the big films that does get quoted a lot. Like even if it's only one line, I mean that's like a lot of movies. It's like it's that one big line. So definitely love the film. Of course, I want to know what you guys think about Back to the Future. I guess I'll probably wait until I do the final film to ask like which one is your favorite. But if you guys want to put that down, you can definitely say which is your favorite right off the top. But of the first film, like what are some of the big moments that you always go back to? Like what are some of your favorite parts? Because I know for sure, even though it's one of the smallest things, for some reason when Marty's talking to George and he's like, you can't do that, and he calls him Dad, and he's like, he switches it up to Daddy-O. For some reason, that was always one of my favorite lines in the film. And it's the tiniest little thing, but I've always loved that scene in the movie. The Johnny B. Good part is really good. That's just a good song. I like the song. Of course, the fake hand, that's another issue that everyone can talk about for sure. It's just like, it just looks so weird when it comes up like that. But I definitely love the film. Like I said, the Johnny B. Good and the Daddy-O thing are definitely some of my favorites. I think Doc meeting Marty for the first time in 1955 is one of my favorites too. Like, that's always really fun to watch. And just pretty much everything with Marty trying to kind of explain the future or them making jokes about the future, like when Marty says like, "Oh, this is heavy," and it's just a saying in 1985, and Doc's like, is there something wrong with Earth's gravitational pull, stuff like that. That's always one of my favorite scenes too. Like, all those scenes are just really silly and funny, and how they interact with this guy who's a genius, and he understands, time travel and things like that. He can comprehend it, but it's like he just doesn't know certain sayings, or just, random sayings, because it's, from the 50s to the 80s is feels more like 30 years when you really look at things. It's like that almost seems like 100 in itself. So, there's a lot going on in those movies. I definitely love them. But like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about, Back to the Future, some of your favorite things, maybe even least favorite things, if you have some things that just really stick out to you that you don't like in the first film. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.